Everybody grieves differently, and today we have asked Michelle Jeffries to share her story with us.
Not the best story to have to tell on a podcast, but it's one that's important, I think. Almost daily, you see a school shooting happening on the news. And unfortunately, that happened to me in 2014. My daughter's.
Welcome to the Healing Spirits Here and There podcast with Terri and Amanda, where you'll hear spiritual perspectives, weird mediumship experiences, and try intuitive and trust-building exercises for yourself. Join us every Friday. Like and subscribe to never miss a show, and let's get started. Welcome to the Healing Spirits Here and There podcast. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Terri. Happy Friday, everyone. Today we are looking at grief caused when a loved one has passed. Everybody grieves differently, and today we have asked my good friend and author, Michelle Jeffries, to share her story with us.
So let's go ahead and welcome Michelle, and I'll go ahead and get her on right now.
Perfect.
And Michelle, let's make you bigger. Oops, not you, Terri. What are you doing?
Hey, whoa.
Hi, Michelle.
Welcome, Michelle.
Hello, hi. Thanks for having me.
That's our pleasure. Thank you for doing this. Today, what we're going to say, you're going to allow us to ask you some questions, but we wanted to hear your story.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's not the best story to have to tell on a podcast, but it's one that's important, I think, especially in this day of age. Almost daily, you see a school shooting happening on the news. And unfortunately, that happened to me in 2014. My daughter, Zoe, was murdered in a high school shooting back in Marysville, Washington. And, that's just not how you want to wake up any day, even, if it's happening to you or if it's on the news. So my story, or our story, is, my daughter got up, she went to school, and a few hours later, I actually saw the news first, and I was at work, and there's a school shooting, and it's broadcasting in my hometown, and I'm a whole other town away, so about 30 minutes out. And I just kind of remember having a gut feeling that, I think it's the initial gut feeling you have when something's happening that close to home, that, oh my gosh, are my children safe? And I had two children in the high school at the time. And so, you grab your phone, you're calling everybody, and I am seeing text messages from my son, but nothing from my daughter. So I was still, okay, maybe she doesn't have her phone, we'll figure it out. It was just sheer chaos. They're telling you, don't call, don't come here, don't do this. We're getting all the kids moved to the local church or wherever they, could get them to once the school was in lockdown. And a couple hours had gone by and still nothing from her.
Oh my God.
So, just kind of jumping forward, at that point when majority of the kids were accounted for, Zoe was still not accounted for. We drive to the hospital because we had heard through, that they were ushering the injured children to the hospital. So at that point, you still have hope and you think, okay, maybe they're just injured. All of them, you of course don't want to wish any child be murdered or, killed in the event. So we get to the hospital and there's hundreds of parents sitting there that had not heard from their children. And we sat for hours. I couldn't even tell you how many hours we sat. Detectives were there. They just kept pulling us back periodically and asking questions, which still gives you hope. And you sit and you wait and you're thinking, okay, the kids are just injured. They're trying to figure out who's who, based on, clothing. And they're asking, what do they look like? What were they wearing? What were they, and everything. And then more time passes. And then they take you to the special room. And that, I think I knew when I was going into that room, but I still was holding out hope. And then they showed us a picture of her hand and were, you know, pretty much at that point told us that she had passed. You know, it's been 9 years, and I still, when I think about it, I just, you know, you still feel it.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, fast forward again to get us
Past.
the conversation continue moving. Yeah, everything's lost at that point. You can't think straight. It becomes the whirlwind of your new life. And that's, you know, when grieving, you're just handed a new life. So there's no, you know, people ask, you know, what do you do to get through every day? What do you do to heal? And healing is going to be with me until I die. Grieving is going to be with me until I die. So, but I will say that those first few moments are kind of going to lead you through that first year. And then each year just gets a little bit softer. So it doesn't get easier. It doesn't get, I mean, it definitely doesn't get easier. It doesn't get, you don't forget, you know, the minute you think about it, it brings you right back to that moment. So, and that could be, you know, I'm in year 9, it could be 20 years from now. And the minute I would relive that moment, it's going to put me right back in that moment. So, you know, the stages of grief, which are wonderful, they're great reads in that first year or two, you know, you definitely want to read about them, but they're cyclic. So they don't come in order. They don't dissipate. They just change a little bit each year. And they just kind of, they either, you know, some years they grow. I had I think it was like year 3 or year 4. It was the year before I had my little one, who's now 6. I think I went through almost an entire year of anger, and it never fluctuated from, you know, anger, depression, this. It was just a year of anger. And then, you know, I've had years where it was just more depression and anxiety, and it's just ever evolving. It's ever changing. And it's something that unfortunately is going to be with you forever. You will, you know, you will find ways to manage it. You'll find ways to cope. I will say it is important to stay busy. It's important to find new hobbies. Exercise is important. It definitely, you know, keeps your body strong, because you're always going to be dealing with grief. So you always need to be healthy, and you always need to be strong. So, and I'm, you know, there's so many other things. For me, writing a book, that was a huge healing process. It was like a journal turned into a book for me. That was helpful.
Because you wanted people to know Zoe.
Right.
Zoe's
not
story.
The tragedy. Yes.
Not the tragedy. Yeah.
And in my situation, you know, it's like parents lose children daily, which is awful. And, you know, we should never have our children leave before us.
Nope.
But my situation was a little more difficult. I don't like to say more difficult, because everybody's situation is difficult. But we had the media presence and the, I guess for me, it took away her identity. It took away the fact that she died and her friends died, because all it was high school shooting. And because that has been so mainstream in recent years, it was just, oh, more kids died in a high school shooting. And so for me, I wanted people to know who she was and who she could have been, and what person died, not just these kids were shot in a tragedy, you know. And there was just so much media coverage and conspiracy theories and drama associated with what really happened was my child was murdered. So, you know, for me, it was like, I I think I struggled with that a lot. So that was
Did you start journaling then on your own, and then that journal turned into the book?
yes.
Okay.
What it was funny because, and I don't think I've ever mentioned this on any podcast, but the funeral home director who, oh my gosh, she was amazing. She actually had me write a letter that I could have cremated with Zoe because I didn't get closure and I didn't get to say goodbye. And I didn't, besides she went to school and that was it. And since we decided to have her cremated, there was we didn't do a viewing. We didn't do all of those things that people do to find some sense of closure. She had me write her a letter, and that is what started it. I wrote her, everything I could think of at the time. And I wrote like a 3-page letter, and I put it in an envelope and send it off with her. And then it was like, from that point on, I just kind of started writing to her as often as possible. And now I have like 5 journals, and I write to her, and I write to my son, and I write to my little one, and I write because I think it's important.
Absolutely.
That if something were to happen to me, that they have that. And so, and then writing in the book too. So,
and you started to blog, so you were putting stuff out there.
I was blogging for a while. I haven't been blogging a lot lately. I need to get back on that, but that has been really helpful, especially for parents new to grief. For me personally, it was finding where you belong after that happens, because you just feel, even though you're surrounded by all your family, all your friends, everybody's, helping and trying to be helpful, you still are just very alone. No one can understand that relationship that you had with your child, and nobody understands, what you're thinking inside your brain, or, you just don't understand, and you'll always feel alone. I mean, I'm, like I was saying, I'm 9 years in and I'm still alone all the time, no matter if I have a friend to talk to, or, I have Terri I can talk to every day if I want to. I just am always still feel alone. And so the blogs and the books are helpful, in my opinion, because it gave me an insight to what someone else was going through, that went through something similar that I did. And they also feel alone, but we can read each other's stories and feel some sense of compassion, or
like understanding
of each other. Like, oh, they get it. They totally get what all the things that I'm thinking in my head. Yes, that's exactly what I wouldn't say to my friend, or my friend wouldn't get that if I said it, or they'd think I was a mental case, or you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things that go on inside your brain. Guilt. There's guilt is huge. You feel guilty because as a mother, parent, father, mother, whatever, you want to protect your children from every single thing that you can possibly protect them from. And when you feel like you failed, it's very hard. It's very hard to grasp that. It's hard to, I think I spend more days feeling guilty than, depressed. There's always guilt. There's always guilt. And that guilt changes too. It's like, initially it was, I couldn't protect her. Then it was, what did I do wrong to get you to that spot? I mean, it just, it's that again is ever evolving. And that is one that I don't know if you can come back from that one. I mean, there's things that I forgive myself for, and I look back and I think, okay, well, that was out of your control, or this is that, it's a process. It's a really, really process. And I did counseling after year 3 when I went through that year of anger. And that's when I finally found a therapist, and she worked with me for 6 years, and we did cognitive behavior training. We did journaling. She was very much all about me journaling. And I would say that the CBT training was most crucial, because she would take a look at what I would bring to the table, like, oh, I'm just so angry that the garbage bag didn't go in the garbage can today. And so then we would just break that down, like,
like what's going on here?
Yeah, I'm really mad at the garbage keg or is it the can? And then, we would just like kind of break that down. And then I just would feel so much better afterwards. It's like, you're right. And then, she made me realize that my anger was actually my anxiety.
Mm.
And so, tuning back into mindful living and stress reducers really, really helped.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is something you got to work on constantly because you're just in this state of grief and then you're trying to live your daily life and do regular functions. And it's like every day can be hard already when everything is normal. And
Oh, yeah.
so, yeah, going to, a lot of people don't like to go to counselors or therapists. And it sounds like it's crucial. So
I
I
don't
guess
know.
it depends on the person, but
It does. I think it depends on the person because I went like within the first 4 to 6 months of her passing, and I just would sit there every day. I would sit there and she'd ask
gotcha.
me questions, and maybe she wasn't the right therapist for me at the time. I'm not
Mhm.
sure, but she would ask questions and I would just tell her I was fine. Oh, I'm fine.
Mm.
Everything's fine. Okay, well, do you have anything you want to talk about? No, not really.
Yeah.
And then I had to be ready. I think that for me, I had to be ready to go. But for some people, talking to another person, it depends, if you're more extroverted or introverted too, you're not going to want to let anyone in per se.
Right.
So I think it's a matter of just going through the journey and finding what works for you. And some people,
Mhm.
if you don't want to go to counseling, confide. Maybe you have a close friend that you mesh well with, because I'm a true believer of energy and energies working together. And for me, my therapist in Virginia, our energy was spot on. But
Good.
a lot of people will go and say, well, it didn't work for me. And it's like, it could have been the counselor, could have been you. It could have been at your timing was just off.
Timing.
Yeah. So I don't want to say that's the thing to do, because there is no thing to do. You have to, like we were saying, you have to work really hard every day to find what is going to give you the balance. And the
Right.
And
balance,
we all have some mental thing going on the way mental illness, or I wouldn't say we all have an illness, but this puts you into many levels
right?
as
Yeah.
well. Now we threw that in, right? Because of the
Mhm.
depression and stuff like that as
And
well.
anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thinking back, like I'm sure I've had my bouts of anxiety, depression, stressors or whatnot. But up until that point, I thought my life was fairly normal, what I would consider normal.
Mhm.
And then when that happened, I have 3 children, so I had postpartum depression, so I knew what that was. And this was like a totally different level, and still is.
Mhm.
It's a totally different level of mental health, I would say. Some days I feel like I'm just super bipolar. Other days I feel like I have ADHD. Other days I feel like I have, maybe I'm manic depressive. I don't know. They just kind of are cyclic. Kind of like you're
Mhm.
grieving. You just never know what's going to pop up.
Mhm.
Um, a perfect example is, I spent 6 years in Virginia and got really comfortable there. And then my husband got out of the military and we moved here to Florida. And
Mhm.
this last year has been bipolar city for me, partially
Yeah.
because change of environment, all normal things that happen. Moving is normal. You move, you do all these things. But I could count on my hand or more hands, the amount of times I've just sat in my closet and bawled my eyes out. And I don't, you know, part of it is the alone feeling, and I lost my comfort zone in Virginia. I had my house that I loved, and I had a routine, because I think routine is super important. And then we moved down
Mhm.
here and everything just kind of like my house
Mhm.
is not unpacked. I couldn't get my stuff down here at time. I mean, every single thing that you could think of would set me off. The dishes were dirty in the sink. I'd be in the closet crying. The movers changed the date that they're going to bring our stuff down. I'd be in the closet crying. My husband can tell you how many times he has walked into my closet and found me in the corner just bawling. I couldn't find Zoe's things, things like that. It's
Right.
So, and it was a normal move. It was just a normal move. But for someone who's having some mental health concerns and has gone through a tragedy, your level of that, what is considered normal, is now a little bit higher.
Yeah, like everything is heightened. Like
Everything's
everything.
Exactly. Yep.
And
your senses are completely heightened.
Yeah, and like the things that we usually cope with on a day-to-day basis that we find hard you're not able to cope with them so easy. So I know you told us some of your coping mechanisms already that have helped you over the years. Exercising, journaling has a great therapeutic value. Confiding with other people who've had a similar situation, so you can actually feel like you're getting some understanding. Is there anything else routine?
Yes. Routine.
Is there anything else that you would advise for people that have helped you over the years?
I would say that, it's important to find like-minded people. And by like-minded, I mean other parents that have gone through what you've gone through.
Yeah.
I met someone in Virginia who lost her son, similar in age to Zoe, and we bonded immediately. And so we would spend, at least once a week getting together, and that helped a lot. That definitely helps a lot. It's sad because now you have found someone who's in the same club that you're in, but at the same time, they almost get it, right? And you almost get it for them. So they're the closest thing that you're going to find because, like, for example, my husband is not Zoe's dad. So he doesn't quite get it. I mean, he gets it because he's sad for me, and he's sad because he had a relationship with her too, but it's not the same. And so it's hard, that's hard in itself because he doesn't quite get it. And then, but then you find another parent who absolutely gets it. And then that's hard too, because they're not your spouse, but which would be the closest thing to you. So you just, I think finding someone who's been through it, I would, they have all these Facebook pages for grieving parents, and excellent resources. Don't get me wrong. They're great, but they are so sad and depressing that I feel like sometimes you don't always want to be on there either. But that's actually how I met her. But I think in the first year or two, maybe not go on there so much. It's a lot. And
that you took that right out of my head. I think I'm going to ask her about those type of sites because everyone's different. Yours is murder, but suicide or that grief. I have a lot of clients that are on it, and maybe they're still on it today, and it's been years. But you know what? Some of them feel like they haven't gone to what I feel could be a more comfortable place, because every story that they read, and you're wanting to be supportive, and you need this as well. But in a sense, to me, it feels like it's being thrown in our face every moment that we're reading their stories, right?
There's that. And then there's just the compassion part, because you're already so compassionate about anyone in life, anything that happens to anyone, right?
Right.
And then you start reading all these people who are going through exactly what you're going through, and it's overwhelming. It's so overwhelming that for me personally, I don't feel like I can grow from that. I feel like I'm reading them and I'm sad with them and I'm upset, like babies shouldn't drown in pools. I mean, that's a lot. It's like watching the news, which is something I try not to do either, because it's just constant. It's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. And it doesn't help you get out of the space that you're in. So if you're already in a space where you're consistently depressed and you're trying to figure out what portion of grief that you're kind of dealing with at the moment, and then you start reading all of this, it just kind of keeps you right where you're at.
Right. Like brings your heart down, right?
It brings, your levels of, I was going to say cortisol levels.
But bring those up. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a stressor. I mean, it just, it doesn't do anything to improve to give you those mood enhancers that we need to stay up, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So anything you would have done to help yourself, go exercise, journal, get yourself feeling a little better, then you go on that page and you read these traumatic, heartbreaking stories, and they just kind of can suck you back down.
Sucks me back down. Yeah.
Okay.
I try to, for me, I'm kind of a go person. I had to find ways to bring my body energy down, but still keep my
Oh.
brain energy active. So I, started crocheting, and that helped immensely. It was like I could finally sit still and not be over exercising or over cleaning the house. And I could sit still, and it gave my brain something to do, but my body could actually rest. So that's important too, because I think a lot of people, I had a year where I walked so much that I had blisters on my feet. I had hip pain and leg pain, but I would still walk almost a half marathon every day.
Oh, wow.
Right. So
Yeah.
I want to say, yes, exercise is important, and it definitely is, but there can be the other end of it, which is excessive. And so you have to find balance, which again, at year 9, here I am still trying to find the balance. But yeah, it was 2 years ago, I was walking a lot, which was great
So,
for weight
Michelle,
loss.
right. But you also worked in a gym, so you were exercising as well. It's not something that you just picked up. You were an athletic person.
Right.
But
Right.
also, would you share about what you were crocheting and what did you do with it?
Oh gosh, I crocheted
hats.
over, yeah, I know. I crocheted over 100 newborn hats, and I
Oh,
donated them to the hospital.
that's so sweet.
Yeah, it was good. It kept me very busy, and it was a good project for me to have, and just, ways to give back. So I'm always doing things like that so I can give back and keep myself busy. And
And you
I
still
love.
give back in different ways when it comes in Zoe's honor.
right. Yes. We established a scholarship at the school. And
Wow.
so we make a donation to that every year, and a portion of the book sales go towards that. So.
And would you mind saying the names of your book? And
Oh, yeah.
I'll put them up here too.
Sure. So the book I wrote for Zoe is My Rainbow to Keep. And then I wrote a children's book for my little one, because she never got to meet her sister. So I wanted her to have a book that she could reference and that would open up dialogue for her and I about her sister, who she was, and why she's not here.
Oh,
And
that's
that
a
is,
wonderful idea.
yeah, it's
Can
called
I
Sister
ask?
in My Heart.
Oh, yes, that is Sister My Heart.
My heart.
I get them from Michelle, and then I sell them here. There, she sends them to me autographed, and then I
Oh,
sell them. Most of the
cool.
time, I end up gifting them out. But I really love that book when it comes to a younger person losing a sister and not meeting a sister or brother, mom or dad. The way that book was made is that she has Zoe kind of faded off as a spirit. And
Okay.
it just warmed my heart the way she did it, the art that's in it, the things that were, her art is factual. Is that right, Michelle?
Yeah, my illustrator was amazing. Christian Calhoun, beautiful artist. And I would just tell her, I would kind of explain to her what I was thinking, and she ran with it, and she came back, and it was perfect. Yeah, she was definitely really good to work with, and she knew exactly what I was trying to say. She even took some of Zoe's art and put it into the book.
Oh, wow.
In cartoon form. She did an excellent job.
That's incredible.
The shirt that you made, is that the one that we're talking about?
No, well, I think that one's in there. There's a couple different, she went on to my website and just took from the website some of the art that's on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you have other kids. Now, how would you talk to people about handling your grief as a parent when you have other children to take care of?
Well, I'll say this, I'm no expert by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had my fair share of ups and downs, but my son was 17 at the time
Mm-hmm.
when Zoe passed. And that was a really difficult phase. We actually were not on, he was on his page and I was on my page. And it took us a long time to kind of come back together.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, while you're grieving, you have other children and you have to get it together for them. I mean, you really do. You don't know what they're going through. You're going through the worst loss that you can ever imagine. And then you have your living child who still needs you. So, it's hard. You just have to try and check in as much as possible. And this is me talking about him as a teenager at the time. You have to try and check in as much as possible, but also let them have their own space because they're going through the same thing you're going through. It's just on a different level. And it's kind of goes back to me talking about people not understanding, what you're going through. As a teenager, I can't even imagine because I remember myself being a teenager and not wanting my parents around, at all anyway. And then you throw a tragic event in their lap and they're still going through the teenage years as a teenager, but now they've got this massive tragedy that they don't understand and they don't know what to do with it either. So, that was a difficult one, and we still have a somewhat difficult relationship, but I try my best and I know he tries his best too. And so we will at some point, I think, figure it out. But
that's not uncommon because doing readings, I find that maybe someone is killed by a drunk driver or maybe suicide, but then the other sibling totally separates himself from mom and dad. And I don't know if it's just too painful to come back into the mix where normal's no longer normal.
Mm-hmm.
So I do feel that is important to try to get it back together.
I also think that they're used to seeing mom and dad be strong all the time. And now they've seen you at your weakest moment. And that's terrifying for them because they don't know what's going to happen to them.
Right.
And if they see that you can't get it together, then they worry that, they just worry about what their future looks like. And I think that probably, that didn't help the situation.
Right.
And then, I went one way as his father went the other way. We just kind of did it differently. And so then he's getting mixed signals on how it should be for him as well. But, we've had a few good years in the moment, and then we have some years that aren't as good, but he's 25 years old now. So he's his own adult. And I'm sure at some point we'll get it back on the right path. But as far as for a little one, now she came in 3 years later. And so that hasn't been as difficult except for photos and, she's getting older and she's asking questions and how come, she's not here. Why couldn't I have my sister, and so that's kind of what sparked the book so that I would have something when she was smaller to talk about with her. And then, obviously when she got older, she could read the other book. But I think it's just important to always, I try to remind her all the time. She has an older brother and an older sister who lives in heaven. And, that, she gets to see her brother when she gets to see him. And then, her sister always lives in her heart. And that was, why we named the book Sister in My Heart, because she's always around you and she's always watching and she knows that, she knows you. And so, all you can do, I mean, really, you just have to work with what you have and do the best that you can to show them that you're working in the positive and you're not staying down in the negative.
When
Yep.
I want to ask you, a lot of my clients say that they don't feel their loved one, they don't feel their child, or they don't see the signs. And sometimes I pick up on the signs, but they're not seeing them. But then after I mention it, then they'll see them. Could you tell me some about that? How that was for you?
For me, in the beginning, like the first week after she died, we had signs like crazy, like signs all over the place. And then after that, it was just nothing. But I also feel like it's energy. And if your energy is blocked, then you can't be open to seeing all the signs. So there, there was a couple of years in there where I had some severely blocked energy and I didn't get what I, had experienced in that first week after her passing. But every year there's more and more signs that just pop up. I'll be driving and there will be a license plate in front of me and the numbers are ZOE. And sometimes they'll have a 222. So even stranger, right? I've seen that one. Or, you look at the clock, it's the birth date, or I get a lot of birds, I get a lot of dragonflies, I get a lot of butterflies. I think they're all just there. I get a lot of light flickering.
I remember when I went to Vegas, I was going through this hotel and it had lots of different things and it had this scary panic room type thing on it. And right across it, it was Zoe's name, huge as day. And then I didn't want to send that to you. And I thought, so I had written and asked you, did Zoe like spooky movies? And you were like, yes. And then I sent it. And so I see those things. I personally have Zoe as a helper. And when I share those stories with you, I would have to ask, Zoe, I got to go call your mom because she helps me in readings and she doesn't fail me. So I don't know why she's the only spirit out of 12, 13 years of reading that kind of sticks with me, but I really appreciate it. And so I hope it never bothers you that I share what's going on with her.
No, because you're always spot on. It's always something. Yeah.
We weren't friends in the beginning. You were actually my son's boss.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny.
Actually, how I met Terri was, so Jeffrey, I hired Jeffrey right before the shooting. And then I was gone for about a month. So, or almost 2 months, I guess. I was out of work. And then when I came back to work, he was already working because I had hired him right before everything happened. And then, I want to say it was like January, I went to the Teresa Caputo show and it was in town and we got front row seats and there was myself and a couple of other parents that were involved in the tragedy. And we were just like, we know we're getting a reading. Yeah. Well, that woman stood right in front of us and she read the people in front of us, behind us, and to the side of us. And I was devastated because, at the time that's that first year and you just want everything that you can get. And I was devastated. And I went back to work and everyone was like, how was the show? Did you guys get a reading? And we were like, and I said, no, she stood in front of me. We could have hugged. That's how close she was. She was right in front of me. And she did not even read us. She read the people behind us, people in front, to the side. And I said, I was really devastated by that. And Jeffrey said, call my mom. And I was like, your mom? Why would I call your mom? And he's like, I think she can help you. So I called her. And when I called her, she says, I knew you were going to call me. I've never seen my phone number before. My phone number was not in her phone. She says, I knew you were going to call me. And I said, what? And she goes, I just felt it. She was like, I went to that show too.
Oh my gosh.
On the ride home from that show, I knew someone that was at the show was going to call me. And it was me.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
I had never met Michelle, seen what she looked like.
Never met.
She even went up on the big screen, and I told my husband sitting there, I think that is Jeffrey's boss. And I'd never seen her. I never watched the
Gotcha.
news. I didn't know it had happened. But yes, and then she came to see me.
Well, I called you and you basically gave me 20 minutes of information over the phone, which was spot on. And then I booked my appointment and we came and we've been friends ever since.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Even Lottie with Mia, they play together. And so we have play dates.
Aw.
And then that's when Mia lived here. And then so every time Michelle comes to visit, it's always me and her get our day together. We even had something happen in the studio when we were taking pictures that both of us were just freaked out.
Yep.
Really?
Tell what happened. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were in the studio and we were trying to take some just pictures of ourselves, like for whatever promo book stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there and we were about to get ready and the camera took a picture of us without either one of us in the picture.
It was across the room.
We were across the room sitting together, just trying to make sure that we fit in the frame together.
Yeah.
We sat and we were both like, okay, you're there, make sure we're both in the frame. And I think Terry's hands are up, like making sure we're in the frame like this. We hear click. And we were like,
oh my gosh.
The look on our face when it happened, because something happened. Something made a noise.
Yeah, there was definitely like a click noise. And we were both like, oh my gosh, what just happened? It was crazy. And we hadn't even set the timer on or anything yet. We were just trying to make sure we were in the frame. And then we still had to go to the phone and put the 10-second timer on. We hadn't even done that yet. We were just trying to set up the space. And we were, oh my gosh. And we both had chills. I remember that we had goosebumps. And
I wish it would have did it again when we were just freaking laughing about it afterward. Like, oh my God, that shit
never
just
gonna happen when
happened.
you ask. It never happens when you ask for it, right?
No,
Right.
No. So let me ask you, do you have signs of flickering lights with her?
I do in this new house. So this is weird because I didn't have this in Virginia. But this
my lights have been flickering and they never flicker, but they have been flickering the whole entire time on my ceiling since we have been doing this.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I'm asking you, is that one something for you? Because it's not for me.
It's new. It's a new thing. It just started in this house. And then at first I was like, it's this house, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's always the same light in the kitchen. And it's always in the morning when I get up and I go and I start my coffee maker. It does it. Doesn't do it any other time of the day. Only when I go to make my coffee in the morning. It's like, hi, Mom.
Aww.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that's
I just
it.
think that's incredible.
Every morning I flick the light on. So it's been off. And then I go and I push the button. And right after I push the coffee button, I'll get a couple and that's it.
Yep. Hi, Mama. Yep.
Yeah.
How cool that is. That's cool.
I don't know. I've also got a ton of blue dragonflies out here. That's my other new thing. Dragonflies like crazy. So that's a good new sign. And then like 2 months ago, I had a lone swallowtail butterfly.
Oh.
And actually, I think it was on her birthday because I was looking for a sign on her birthday and it has been freezing here. It's been down in the 30s and it's Florida.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
which is bizarre. It's been very cold. And it was during the cold. It hadn't warmed up yet. And here on her birthday was this swallowtail butterfly that just came flying around me. In fact, it almost landed on me. It was just like coming around. And I just was like, well, it has to be because I hadn't seen any butterflies before that. Didn't see any after until just this week. We've got butterflies again now. And dragonflies. They're all coming out now. It's warming up down here.
I love that.
It's amazing. I like it.
Those signs we need them. You need them.
We do.
Michelle does keep herself busy, and I am very proud of all the things that you have done to keep yourself motivated and going. And I really appreciate you sharing your story.
Not a problem. If I can help one person, that's what I've always said. Every book I read
Yes.
helped me. So I hope that my book can help someone. I hope they go on my website, read my blogs, reach out, whatever. I mean, I try to help where I can. I'm not perfect, and I don't know exactly what it's going to look like for, whoever needs it, but I do know that staying busy and staying positive and trying to work on all the things you need to get through the rest of your lifetime are important. They're just important because, what are we doing here? They're watching us. They want to make sure that we're living our best life still. And
100%.
as much
100%.
as it doesn't feel like you should be living your best life, you have to, because there's a greater purpose. I think there's a
True.
purpose. There's a reason, especially if you have other children. That's your reason right there, is you have other children that you have to live for. You have to be available, and you have to be well, you have to be healthy for them. And so if that's the purpose, great. But if there's a greater purpose, if there's a mother that lives in your town and her world becomes shook and you're that resource, then that's equally important. I know
Right.
I was that for my friend in Virginia. She was very recent, and she needed me for that first 2 years. And now I wouldn't say she's fantastic, but she's doing it. And she
Right.
needed me,
She
and I
is.
was in the right spot at the right time. I mean, what are the odds of that? We met on a Facebook page. We lived 2 miles from each other, and we had almost the exact same lifestyle. It was crazy. Like, we both worked in fitness. We were both, that type of person. And it was like we were just drawn to each other, and I was there for those 2 years, and that's exactly what she needed. And now we're still friends, but I'm not there anymore, and she's in a better place.
I'm also blessed to have known her as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Got those strong kiddos out there. Those makes me feel that I'm blessed to be able to do what I do.
Yeah. Help people when they need it so bad, when you just need information or confirmation, validation that your loved one is still there. They're not gone
No.
they're still there, and they are able to communicate and give signs, and it's just a small piece, but it's very helpful. There's so much grief, and there's so much trauma and tragedy. And as like a collective of souls here on earth, I think we're going through a lot of pain. And so whatever we can do to help each other feel better, cope, whatever it is, we need it. And so I'm so thankful, Michelle, for you telling your story. It is painful, it is tragic and traumatizing, but you've been able to infuse hope, kindness, love, and helping others into your story too. And so I'm just so happy and thankful that you're able to do that for people, because it's not easy.
It's not easy, but it's, part of my healing journey, I guess, is how I look at it. I'm, while healing, trying to heal myself through this process of life. It warms my heart, makes me feel good when I know that I've been a small piece of someone else's
Healing or journey. And
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Whatever, even if it's just a snippet, like, oh, you've been there, you've done that, it just.
Help them feel a little understanding from someone else too that's been through it. So we're going to go and I will list Michelle's websites, her books, where to find her. And so if anybody feels so inclined, please feel free to go check out what she has to offer. And is there anything else that you would like to add to that, Michelle?
No, I think, just reach out if you need anything. I'll try to help.
Awesome. Terri, do you have any ending questions or anything else you'd like to talk to Michelle about?
No, I'm good. I get to talk to Michelle quite a bit. I'm not friends with everybody. It just so happened to be that she got entwined with Jeffrey, and that's how I was able to stay there with her, and the kids were so close. But I miss you dearly.
Oh, I miss you
Aw.
dearly too. I'm Jeffrey's older sister.
I know. Yeah, it's funny. But yeah, thank you. One more thing I like that you didn't mention, and but you still put Zoe out there, and to make somebody's day happy by finding things. Do you still do that? You used to go leave things
Oh, my
like an Easter
kindness.
bunny.
Yes, the kindness.
Okay, fine.
My random acts of kindness.
Mm.
Yes, I do them. Not as often as I was doing them, but at least once or twice a year, somebody may find an envelope with something fun in it.
Oh,
Yeah. Or
I
random
love
toys
that.
left with a note, right? She'd leave
Yeah,
toys with a
I've
note.
done dog park toys. I've done gift cards in bathrooms. I've got these little cards made up that just, spreading kindness and in memory of, birthday,
Oh,
Starbucks cards, that kind of thing, pay it forward,
Yeah.
that's sweet.
yeah.
Such joy that gives you to brighten somebody else's day through
Mhm.
your own grief and your wellness, right? Is
Mhm.
that the right word? Wellness.
Yeah. I mean,
Yep.
it's definitely one of those things that keeps you going. Definitely one of those
Right.
things that keeps you going.
Incredible. And next week, we're going to have on Jan Finley, who has actually been on the podcast before, but she's a professional therapist, hypnotherapist, and she's going to talk about grief as well from a professional perspective of steps that she can help, people take to move through something tragedy in their life. And so we'll kind of have the same topic next week, but from a different perspective.
Well, it's good because it's not, I know we said we were going to be about mediumship and exercises and stuff, but when I'm getting emails and I'm getting clients and
Mhm.
I can only do so much from my end, but I
Mhm.
don't have the experience and I haven't went through it.
Yeah.
So I just, I talked to Amanda and she's like, yeah, well, let's do this. So just like on February, we decided to love ourselves and do things that way. This
Mhm.
is something else that's very important. This is an everyday event. Somebody, somewhere, somehow is going through one way or another exactly what you did.
Very true. Every
Yeah.
day. And grief doesn't even have to be loss of a child. I mean, people are grieving so many things right now.
A lot of things. And
politics.
parents and
I'm not trying to
husbands
get into
and wives.
politics, but grief for different people looks differently. And it doesn't matter, loss of a child is,
The worst.
the worst. Loss of a pet, loss of a loved one, loss of
Absolutely.
a family member, loss of a job, divorce. Those are all things that people grieve. So it just,
Absolutely.
each person again is just different in how it affects them,
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And we can talk about that with Jan too. So I think it'll be it's a really important topic, and 2 podcasts of it isn't even enough, but it's just a little start. So
Appreciate you guys having me on, and
Yeah.
come back whenever you need me.
oh, thank you. Oh, yes. And I would love to know about your homesteading. I would love to do a homesteading podcast too.
I told her that all your chickens that you had in incubators and your how you say incubators? Say the
Incubators,
word.
yes.
Yeah.
Incubators.
And I'm like, oh my God, you got to see what she's doing. She's giving me a tour. She goes, Amanda's like, we need to do that on a podcast.
Yeah, because Michelle, you probably know we need to learn how to take care of ourselves again, right? Like
Absolutely.
we need to know how to make our own food. We need to learn how to take care of us and not be so dependent outside sources. And so I think that'd be a wonderful topic.
I think so too. My sister-in-law just told me last night when she was like, "You're on a podcast tomorrow?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "You need a homesteading podcast." And I said, "That's so funny that you said that. I probably should." Because we do everything. We do food storage. We get our own protein sources, and
She grows her own worms.
I grow my own mealworms. I've got 90.
Really?
Yeah, I've got 90 chickens in the incubator right now.
Oh my gosh.
And 30 out in the yard making eggs. And then, yeah, it's a cycle.
Wow. Yeah, we definitely, when you're ready, when you want to do that, and maybe if you do start a podcast or something, that would be a great time for us to interview you. Then we can, put your
Yeah.
podcast out or
Oh,
whenever you want.
yeah. I do not know when I would have time to do that, but
Right.
it would be nice. Yes.
Yeah, it would be really cool.
Yeah.
So very cool. Well, we are going to let you go, Michelle, and I'm so
right.
happy to meet you. I've heard just the most wonderful things about you from Terri.
Oh, thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us. And from my heart to yours, I love you.
Mwah.